So this is Gabriel 6 or 8 or 2 or something.
Eight.
Eight based on
8.
our calendar, looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, eight.
And anything we should be talking about before we talk about his samples? It's got a
There
good,
was,
it's
I
got a
guess there
good
was one
haircut.
thing. Oh, thanks. There was one thing, which I already mentioned to Amber, but the the beeper has, I do have a small problem with the beeper, which it would be nice to resolve, but there are also, plenty, I can deal with it as well. This little thing, it
Yeah.
has, it cracked right there where it goes around it.
Okay.
So now it doesn't really have a friction fit anymore, so it doesn't stick on there.
All right. I think we can solve that issue before next time.
Okay, sounds good.
But
Okay,
don't throw that away because we might have to solve it with Scotch tape or something and use that.
okay, no worries. I'll probably end up getting like a new pair of earbuds or something as well, so I could just do that.
It turns out that uh, that hook is a rare animal.
Oh, really?
You
Okay.
can't get them anymore.
Oh, well, sorry,
And,
bro.
and I'm going to have to figure out exactly what to do about that because it's sort of an important deal for our research. You want to have
Okay.
it sort of securely in your ear.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy earphones that don't come with the hook, but you can't buy earphones with the hook anymore.
Right.
And
Okay.
so we're going to have to print them on a 3D printer
Hmm.
or make them out of wire or something.
Hmm.
I'm open to suggestions from anybody who we're gonna have to do a workaround pretty soon. We don't have very many earphones left.
Okay, I see.
Any other issues? I sent you, I think, transcript and comments and whatever.
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
recommending that.
I read through that. I assume we're gonna talk about it after the beeps.
Yeah, I would say we should talk about the beeps. It might come up. Some of the things in there, I'm presuming, might come up during the conversation.
Okay.
I don't think we should be shy. First off, I don't think we should be shy about acknowledging that I have sent you that thing and you've looked at it.
Hmm.
And so we don't need to pretend. There's absolutely no pretense involved in what it is that we're doing here.
Okay, got it.
But I would rather spend our time focused on the beeps than
Hmm.
on some quibble about what words I used or didn't word or
Hmm.
didn't say or whatever.
And by the way, I'm 100% okay with this being recorded. Just get that out of the way.
Okay, I appreciate that. And it is recording. So beep number one, is you're going to do it or
When did you wear the beeper?
Okay, so I wore the beeper for a little bit this morning, but mostly I wore it last night.
Okay, and did you collect some this morning and some last night, or that?
Let me check really quickly which ones were
You can
this
just give
morning.
it out. It's fine.
It was one this morning.
Okay.
No, actually, it was two this morning. My bad.
So 4 last night and then 2 this morning.
Yes.
Okay.
So why don't we start with the 2 this morning? So we'll call them sample number 5, 8.5 or something like that.
Okay, that
Is
sounds
right?
good. I will say, I think I had some trouble last night with the beeps. I think maybe I was a little tired or something, and it was making it difficult. So I'm gonna try to avoid doing it when I'm tired, because I think it made me less effective.
Well, I would say let's look at the beeps and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Because
Okay,
it could be that what seems difficult to you seems informative to us for whatever reason.
Okay.
And it also could be that what seems difficult to you seems difficult for us, and so we think we ought to skip that kind of stuff. But
Okay.
let's keep an open mind about that.
Okay, that sounds good. I can do that.
We're gonna start with beep 5. And Dr. Herbert, you could take the lead on that one.
Okay.
Okay. We're gonna start. This is actually, I don't know if this matters. This is actually technically the sixth beep because there was one that I didn't write down, so I just did an extra one. But I
All
don't know
right,
if that matters.
let's call it beep 6.
Okay. So should I explain beep 6?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I was listening to my professor speak, and in my experience were the words "know the rest," and I was hearing my professor say "know the rest." That was my experience of the words. Um, and then there was also a confusion as to how we could know the rest of what he said, because he said, "You know the rest," but all that was in my auditory experience was "know the rest." So there was a confusion as how we could know the rest of this thing he was talking about because it's infinite. And then additionally, there's a visual experience of looking at like a caret bracket. I don't know if that's what it's called, but it's the little bracket that's just an angle. And so that was visually in my experience, and the sense of them being logical. So I was looking at logical caret brackets.
So by caret bracket, so I'm picturing the right thing. You mean like a less than sign or a more greater than sign?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'd call that an angle bracket. Caret
Okay.
bracket's fine. Caret bracket's fine with me. I just
Okay.
want to know what we're talking about.
I put in the chat. Is it those, Gabriel?
Oh, let me check. It's a little difficult for me. Yes, it's those.
Okay. So tell us what you see. And calling it a caret bracket's fine with me.
Okay. So yeah, I see a closed caret bracket, and it's wider. It was actually on the whiteboard, so this was something I was seeing in real life, and it was taller, so it was taller and skinnier, and I was seeing it as a closed caret bracket.
Okay. And this is in real life. I'm looking at the board and seeing the closed caret bracket.
Yes.
And is there anything else on the board that's in the universe? There's other stuff on the board, or is it just on the board?
There is the knowledge that it's a closed caret bracket, which is surrounding stuff, but I don't, in my experience, that stuff is not in my experience.
So your experience is of just the closing high, narrow, closing caret bracket.
Yes.
Even though in the universe there's quite a bit of stuff other stuff on the blackboard, but you filtered that entirely out.
Yeah, there is in my experience the knowledge that there is other stuff, but what that stuff is not in my experience.
And so the word knowledge is a problematic word for us. So
Okay.
we need to flesh that out, because there's knowledge of all different kinds of ways. Like there's knowledge that the war in Ukraine has got some problems, and there's knowledge of E equals MC squared, and there's knowledge of keep your arm straight when you hit the golf ball, and so there's all different kinds of knowledge. Some of which is present to me at the moment, and some of which is
Okay.
part of my sort of bodily, mental, psychophysiological, whatever you want to call it, stuff,
Okay. I would say the knowledge was present to me in the sense that I was experiencing the caret bracket as one small part of what had been written. So because it's a part of what had been written, that means that in my experiences, the knowledge that there was other stuff, I think.
This is a hard and important word for us, for me, or whatever.
Okay.
So first off, is what I see just the caret bracket? I don't see the rest of the stuff?
Well, I know that we've talked about how in visual experience, there's like undefined, there can be undefined elements that are still there, but when you really look at it, like it's hard to say exactly what it was like. And I think that there was kind of a vague smudge of the rest of the board. But I don't, and I do feel like that was in my experience to some extent.
Okay.
Um,
But I'm gathering not much.
Not much, no.
And by not much, to like 10% or 1% or 49%?
Well,
Or,
I would say it's more, it's like,
and I
it's
don't want to hold us to a number. I just want to
right.
know.
Okay. It's concentrated like closer to the bracket. So the stuff that's closer to the bracket is more in my experience. Especially the stuff directly behind the bracket, not so much the stuff above it.
Okay.
And I don't know if I can give you a number, but everything like beyond a few characters before the bracket was barely in my experience.
Okay. So then let's get to the word know. So I know that there's other stuff there. So is the knowing that there's other stuff there separate knowledge? I see the carrot bracket and I am thinking, well, there's other stuff up there, but I'm not paying attention. That would be one kind of knowing. Or does it seem like as an integral part of the seeing of the carrot bracket is some sort of, this is a carrot bracket that is a part of some other larger expression?
Okay, it is the no, it's more the second. So the way in which I know that there's other stuff, what I mean by that is to say I'm experiencing the carrot bracket as a small part of something else.
Okay.
Like more things.
Okay. And then I hear my instructor say, know the rest. And he has said in the universe, you know the rest.
Yes.
And so what's the difference between know the rest and you know the rest? So you said my experiences of know the rest, not you know the rest. And I'm trying to understand what you're conveying about that.
Well, at the moment of the beep, when I got the beep, it just felt like the words know the rest were right there, but the word you was not.
Okay.
That's the best way I can put that, I think. There might be a better way to put it, but that's what I got at the moment.
And so by right there, know the rest, does that mean I'm really sort of tracking along the whole sentence, and I think the beep came in somewhere in here in know the rest? Or does it seem like really for the most part I am hearing know the rest more or less in the same way as I see the carrot, I guess, that I'm not really paying attention to anything else. I'm hearing just this piece, then I'm going to hear this other piece.
Yes, it's okay. I'm not actually sure I understand the distinction there. Could you rephrase that again, or maybe just explain it one more time?
So the distinction that I'm interested in is, does it seem like I have extracted this chunk and know the rest, and that's what I am hearing? Or does it seem like I'm hearing a whole sentence flow by, and at the moment of the beep, it just happens to be the know the rest portion of it?
It feels like okay. It feels like I am experiencing the whole sentence when it comes to the meaning of the sentence. You know the rest. But when it comes to the auditory experience of the the sentence, it was just the words "know the rest"
Okay.
at the moment of the beep. That is.
Okay. And then there's some confusion.
Yes. So yes, there's confusion because when he said "you know the rest," it almost sounded as though he was saying, you've seen this whole thing before, but the whole thing would have technically been infinite. So it's impossible to have known the rest. So I was like momentarily confused. And the confusion represents itself as not in words, but just me wondering if I have something wrong or if he has something wrong.
And is that a cognitive wondering? Is that right? Is that not right? Am I right? Is he right? Or is that some kind of an other kind of confusion?
I would say I don't. So oftentimes when I hear the word cognitive when we're doing these, I kind of assume that means like it's something I'm actively thinking through. But at that moment, the confusion felt more like something that happened to me as opposed to something I'm actively voluntarily pursuing. So it's cognitive in the sense that it's mental, but it's not. It's something that I feel like I'm receiving more so than creating.
So I was using cognitive as pretty much a synonym of mental, I think.
Okay.
But so I could imagine that confusion is closer to, I wonder whether it's me that's got the problem or him that's got the problem. That I would call sort of a cognitive end of the spectrum that I'm trying to define. And the other end of the spectrum would be about confusion, would be the things that are just flying all over the place. Man, there's a meteor going this way and a kaboom going that way and whatever. And I can't keep track of all of that stuff. That could be called confusion as well.
Right. Okay. I would say it's more at the cognitive end of the spectrum then.
So I don't feel confusion in the sense of, I don't know exactly how to say it, as an affective thing. I feel it as a mental.
I think it's actually both. There was some discomfort associated with it, which I would call like the affective part.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And is that discomfort a mental thing as well, or a bodily thing?
It is a mental thing. It's like a frustration. And I know you'll wonder how it manifests itself. And I've always had trouble trying to figure that out when it comes to frustration or confusion, like how it manifests itself. And I don't know if I can describe it. It might be the end of the road, just saying that. I can't describe like the components of like, a color red or something like that. I don't know if I could describe that frustration that I was feeling in that moment, especially because it was kind of a short feeling of frustration. So its impact on my memory is kind of small.
Mm-hmm. So I'm inclined to say I've asked the questions that I've got to ask. Anybody else have anything they want to add, subtract, whatever?
I just wanted to clarify. So you used a few words to describe this feeling. I just wanted to double check that are these all words to describe the same phenomenon, or are they somehow separate? Does that make sense? Like you said, confusion,
which words?
confusion, frustration, discomfort. Are those all three terms to describe the same kind of process or phenomenon here with this mental something received confusion,
Yes.
whatever? Or are confusion, frustration, discomfort three different things and they're all occurring?
The frustration and discomfort are the same thing, and they're part of the confusion. The confusion is the combination of the discomfort / frustration and the question, am I wrong or is he wrong?
Okay, and these things are all occurring at the moment of the beep, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I couldn't hear what you said there. Did you say as a consequence of am I wrong or is he wrong?
I was saying the frustration and confusion, or sorry, the confusion is a combination of the frustration / discomfort and the question, am I wrong or is he wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And is the question, am I wrong or is he wrong, somehow explicitly present to you? Not necessarily in words in that way, but
yes, I would say so. Not as words or language or anything, as a curiosity.
and a specific curiosity, is it him or is it me?
Mm-hmm.
Or a general curiosity, I don't know what the hell's going on here.
It's specifically, is it him or is it me?
Okay. So for future reference, that's the kind of thing that I would call at the cognitive end of the spectrum. And so if we've got a choice between X and Y, him or me, that's more cognitive, where I would say discomfort. Okay. Discomfort is more at the affective end, whatever end of this spectrum.
Okay, that's good to know.
Because discomfort, there's no or and or disjunction or conjunction or whatever in discomfort necessarily. Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so that's what I mean. When there is some kind of logical construction that you could, I suppose, put on it, then I would say that's at that cognitive end.
Okay, got it.
I think in the past we've used like analytical as a synonym for that too, for cognitive, in the sense of all this is maybe happening mentally, but there's sort of one end is sort of an analytical sort of a thing where there's some sort of evaluation going on. The other is just a emotional, affective sort of a thing. Not holding too fast to the words there, but that,
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So on to beep 7.
Okay, 7.
Yep. And how do you want to order this? Amber, do you want to go next, or I can take it, or?
It doesn't matter.
Why don't we go Amber and then Cody?
Yeah.
Okay. So should I go ahead and describe the beep?
Please.
Yeah.
Okay. So auditorily, I was experiencing the words Hesperus is Hesperus, also spoken by my professor. And actually no, I was reading these. It was not my professor speaking. So I was reading these, and they were in my my experience.
Really quick, what were the words?
Hesperus is Hesperus. Hesperus.
Okay.
I'm not sure I have the pronunciation correct, but
no, that's fine. I just didn't get it, but go ahead.
Okay, got it. And visually, in my experience, was the last Hesperus there. So this was also auditorially in my experience because I was reading them, and it was in that voice that I've described, which is my voice, but my reading voice, my internal reading voice. And so it was an internal speaking, and at the same time, I was wondering if with omnipotence, those words would have a different meaning meaning than the other phrase, because this was part of a paper, and they were being compared with another phrase. That other phrase wasn't in my experience, but I was wondering if they would still have if those words would have the same meaning as the other phrase, if a person was omnipotent.
Okay. Is that everything?
That is everything.
Okay, so you said quite a few things here. So I was just wondering, are any of these things more salient to you, or are they all the same?
The most salient thing was wondering if the two phrases would convey or mean the same thing if somebody was omniscient. I didn't mean, if I said omnipotent, I think I said omnipotent. I meant to say omniscient.
Okay. Okay, so let's start there. So tell me more about that.
Which thing, the wondering, so I can give you like a percent breakdown if you want.
Well, just since that's the most salient thing,
Okay.
if you have numbers you can put to it, sure. If not,
Okay.
that's okay as well.
Okay. Specifically, I was wondering like if somebody was God, so like they had the omniscience of God, and I would say this was probably 70%, and the auditory experience was like 20%. The visual experience was like 10%.
And then what about, is the reading separate from the visual and the auditory, or is that part of that?
The auditory experience is the reading there.
Okay. Well, so let's go back to the wondering. So how is this wondering in your experience?
Okay.
And before you answer that, could you tell us exactly what you were wondering?
Okay. So I was wondering, do you want to know exactly what I was wondering as a whole, or exactly what was in my experience of wondering?
Probably both, but I'd like to keep those separate.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll tell you what I was wondering as a whole right now. So as a whole, I was wondering if the phrase Hesperus is Hesperus would have the same cognitive value as the phrase Hesperus is phosphorus to someone who was omniscient.
And you said Hesperus is, what was that?
Phosphorus.
Okay.
And these are two words for Venus.
And is the second word with a B or a PH?
PH.
And there are two words for zenith with a Z?
Venus, the planet.
Venus with a V. It's the disadvantage of Zoom. Zoom makes things a little bit dumb.
Audio gets a little messed up. Okay.
And so you said this was the, I guess, general, what I was wondering, is that what you said? This portion is?
What was in my experience of wondering at that moment?
You froze a little bit. Would you say that again?
Oh, yes, that was what I was wondering overall, but that wasn't exactly what my experience was at that moment.
Okay. Could we get the experience? What's in the experience now?
What was in my experience was if the phrase Hesperus is Hesperus would have the same cognitive value to an omniscient being as the other phrase. So the other phrase wasn't in my experience, but I was still like, it was still referenced in my experience.
So is this a, again with our, is this like a cognition kind of a deal? Like I'm trying to decide, or is
Yes,
this
it was definitely cognition.
okay? And are any of these words in this wondering at the moment of the beep, or is this more of a, there's this kind of, I'm having this cognition, I'm thinking about these things, and when I'm describing it to these guys, that's what it's about?
Okay, I would say omniscient. Oh yes, oh yes. Though okay. Sorry, I misunderstood your question at first. I get your question. Those words were not okay. Hesperus was in my experience, but the wondering, the way I was describing it, those words of the wondering were not in my experience.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So how is this wondering in your experience?
Mostly it was in my experience just as analysis. However, there was a very, very vague image, which was imagined, and it was the image of it was the image of what an omniscient being would see if they were looking at Venus.
Okay. And then what is the image?
I the image is like a three-dimensional black box with a sphere somewhere inside there, and the upper half corner of the box is white.
Okay. So is there anything else to say about this wondering, I guess, broadly, this wondering? Is there anything else to say other than it's somehow a cognition, and then there's this image as part of this?
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any other aspects of it than that.
Okay. Okay. So let me see if I got this right. I in this portion of my experience, I'm somehow thinking about, if without words, if Hesperus is the same as this other phrase, or it's the same cognitive values as this other phrase, and I'm somehow have this image of a 3D black box with a sphere, and the upper half corner of the box is white.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get all of it? Okay. And so this image, how is
So
that?
can we back away from this word image? So
Okay.
am I understand you to be saying at the moment of the beep, I'm seeing a black rectangle, black cube, black on the bottom, circle on the inside. I'm seeing it.
Yeah, so it's like the visual experience is there.
Okay.
In my imagination. It wasn't in the real world.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's find out about what exactly he sees. And so the distinction is that is the experience of seeing, or is the experience of seeing an image, which are two very different things. Seeing an image implies that there's a Cartesian deal. There's a seer and an image, whatever. And that some people experience that. They, some people will say, well, I was seeing the image and the image floated away, or whatever. People do say that. But most people more commonly say, well, I was seeing this box. And it wasn't really I was seeing an image of a box. I was seeing the box in my imagination. So the question is, are you more seeing this box with a sphere in it, or are you seeing actually an image of it?
I'm not seeing an image. I'm seeing the box and the sphere.
Okay. Is that distinction clear to you, Amber?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay.
do you have more questions? You could.
Yeah, I do have some more questions about that. So at first you said it was very vague, but then you gave some pretty clear, distinct description of it. And so I'm wondering how I should understand that.
Okay.
And so what I would like to do is I don't care about the words. I don't care whether you called it vague or not, and I don't care whether you gave clear distinction. I want to go back to the experience because I view these things as sort of a first draft. So in my first draft, I said it was vague, and then later on, when I write a second draft, I might want to retract those words or redefine those words or use entirely different words. And so I'm not interested in defining what you meant by vague. I'm interested in understanding what this experience of seeing what the box was like.
Okay. Well, I'll say that it was a small part of my experience. And I'll also say that I was experiencing this visual thing that I just described as I was experiencing it as the point of view of God or an omniscient being. That's how it was experienced, and
As in, this is what God would see?
yes.
Okay.
And it was, I mean, I wasn't experiencing it as undefined, but it was definitely very, like upon reflection, it was more undefined than most of the things that I, imagine. So that's what I meant. That is what I meant by vague, even though you weren't too interested in defining that. But
So there's an indefiniteness to it. Is that?
I mean, the indefiniteness wasn't something I was, consciously reflecting on. So maybe it wasn't in my experience, but.
So let me. So let's start over. Let's start over again. So there's a cube involved here. Is that to start with?
Yes. Well, the inside of a box. It was.
Okay. The inside of a box. And is this a little box or a big box or a huge box, or doesn't that make?
Well, the box is small in my. It's like not very big in my imagination, as in it doesn't occupy like a big portion of whatever my visual field is.
Okay.
But it is big in the sense that the box is a big chunk of the solar system.
Okay. So what I see is this big in my or this big or this big or.
Well, I don't know if I could do could I
Is it
do
this
that.
is it this big as far as my visual field is concerned?
Well, I mean, do you mean? I guess.
So you said what you said was something like this was a small part of my visual field, and a small part of my visual field could mean so if this screen is my visual field, this is it's sort of hard to do. This is a small part because it doesn't include everything. Or this is a small part.
Okay.
I just want to know.
We're talking about a ratio to your screen. Okay. Now I understand.
I want to know why I really want to know what's behind saying it's a small part.
Okay.
It's a small part.
Because it's like so if you stack the two frames of your glasses on each other, that would be like the percentage of my visual field that I felt it was encompassing.
Okay.
So like the two glasses.
Okay. And inside that is a sphere. And does that sphere take up that whole space, or is it like a little space in between in there?
I don't know. I don't know how much it takes up. It's not more than half, but that's all I can say.
Okay. And then there's some part of it that's white.
Yes. Somehow it's like if you cut the box in half,
This way?
you know how like you can cut a sandwich diagonally?
Uh-huh. This way.
It's like, yeah, it's exactly. It's like that, but three-dimensional. And then the top corner is like half of that is white.
And is it the box that's white or the space inside the box that's white and black?
It's the border, the box that's white.
Okay. And here again, I'm explicitly not asking about what the significance of any of this thing. I'm interested in what you see, and
Mhm.
what I understand you to be saying is something like, I'm seeing a box that's sort of this size, so three-dimensional like this, and that box is sliced diagonally through it, and the upper half is white and the bottom half is black, and in there is a sphere which is no bigger than half as big as the box.
Mhm.
And that I see, and I understand that to be, this is what God would see if he was looking at, or she, or whatever, if the omniscient being was looking at Venus.
Right. And Venus is white, by the way.
So the ball, that Venus is the ball inside.
Yes, the ball is Venus.
Okay. Okay.
Real quick, Gabriel, when we're talking about the diagonal portion of this box that's white, is that to say like the sides of the box are white? Is that correct?
Yes, the size of the box.
As opposed to like a three-dimensional like triangle being like a region being colored. It's just
Yeah, right.
okay.
Yeah. It's an area.
Sorry, you froze up there, Gabriel. You said the area and then we
Right.
lost.
Oh, sorry. It's an area that's white and not a volume.
No. Okay.
I think my internet connection is a little worse here than it was in California, so I apologize for that.
No problem. It's adequate.
Okay.
So I'm ready to leave the visual portion. Do you want to resume, Amber, or do you want me to ask some other questions? Or
If you've got more questions, I think we should just keep the ball rolling here.
okay. So I'm back to the wondering portion.
Mhm.
So this is what I understand. You tell me whether this is right. I'm reading Hesperus is Hesperus, and I'm wondering whether the omniscient being would think that this thing that I'm reading, Hesperus is the same as this other thing, which I know to be Hesperus is Bosporus, but that's not so present to me because I'm not reading it.
Right.
Is that right?
Hmm.
And so the reason that Hesperus is present to me is because that's what I'm reading.
Yes.
Okay. And if we have been putting it into words, and the words would be, well, would the omniscient being think that Hesperus is the same as Hesperus is phosphorus?
Yes. Or I would say, would the omniscient being think it has the same cognitive value?
Okay. Okay. I don't think I know what cognitive value means, but I'm not sure that I need to know what cognitive. Do you think I need to know what cognitive value is to understand what's happening?
Um, Let me think about that. I don't Hmm. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's necessary.
So what I gather is it's the same in what I could say in my lingo or my understanding is it's the same in some very specific way that I know what it is. I don't have to spell it out for myself because I know what it is. We'll call it cognitive value, but
Yes, right. I guess, oh, by cognitive value, it's like communicates the same thing.
so does the phrase Hesperus is Hesperus communicate the same thing as the phrase Hesperus is phosphorus?
Yes.
Okay. From the view of the omniscient being.
Yes. But I mean, if I really wanted to be specific, I would say it's not even the word communicate because um, it would be the word represent. Represent the same thing.
Okay. Then I would like to go back to the reading experience.
Okay.
So I am reading in my reading voice. And could you tell me again what you mean by that?
So there I am auditorially experiencing the words Hesperus is Hesperus. They're present to me auditorially at the moment of the beep. Um, and it is my voice that's reading them. But we've made a distinction between my voice as the speaking voice when I'm speaking in real life, as opposed to my voice that is the one where I'm reading something. They're both my voice, but I experience them differently.
And how do you experience this one?
So um, it sounds different. So it's like there isn't a vocal tone to it. It's kind of like a raspy, almost whisper. It's not experienced as a whisper, um, but that's what it sounds like.
Okay. And does this so you said I experience it auditorially. That from my in my world is a sort of an ambiguous thing. Does that mean I'm speaking? My experiences of speaking these, it's obviously an imaginary deal. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it out loud, but
Mhm.
do I experience myself as speaking it, or do I experience myself as hearing it, or both?
I experience myself as speaking it.
So I'm speaking in my reading voice
Mhm.
along with the along with what I'm reading.
Yeah,
So
and I am hearing myself speaking it.
I don't mean to rule it out, but
Okay.
when you speak aloud, you hear yourself speak aloud too.
Right.
But when you hear your voice on a tape recorder, you don't experience yourself as speaking.
Mhm.
Most people don't anyway.
Right.
It becomes sort of purely auditory.
Right. I'm sorry, I interrupted your question there. What was your question?
So I understand you to be saying I am reading Hesperus is Hesperus and speaking those words in my inner voice, in my inner reading voice, as I read them.
Yes.
And in the reading, in the speaking portion, it's the second of those two words. The second.
Um, in the yeah. Okay. So I'll retract that. I'll say in the visual, not I guess I was reading all those words, but I was only visually experiencing the last one at the time of the beep. So I was looking at that word on the book and or in my notes, and it was visually in my experience. And
That is what you said. It was
real
visual.
world.
According to my notes, you said it was visually the second Hesperus.
Okay.
And so I misspoke when I said you were reading the second Hesperus.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Sorry about that. So does that mean that you are also speaking the second Hesperus? That the beep comes when I am both seeing and speaking the second of Hesperus is Hesperus?
Probably, but I didn't experience it as that specifically. I experienced it as I guess I experienced it as speaking all of them.
So I'm speaking Hesperus is Hesperus, and I'm seeing Hesperus.
Yes.
And we've asked this question before, maybe about the previous beep. Does it seem like you're seeing one word and then seeing another word and then seeing another word and then seeing another word? Or does it seem like the beep just happens to get me on I'm seeing a sort of a train of words going by and the beep happens to get me on this one?
Well, that's I don't know how to answer that, and here's why. Because I wasn't in that moment experiencing it as a train of words. But I also wouldn't say I was experiencing it as one word after another. I was just experiencing one word visually at that moment. So maybe that means that I experienced all the previous ones as one word as well. But all I know is that for that particular one word, I just saw it as one word.
Okay, fair enough. And that's exactly the answer that I was. So Mike, you're right.
Okay.
My question was less than perfect question, and you answered the question that I was really trying to ask.
Okay, got it.
I appreciate that. And I think that answers the questions that I had in mind.
Okay.
Anybody else have any more they want to ask about that?
I did have one quick question, and so my understanding of all this, Gabriel, is that to go back to the wondering, right? I'm innerly speaking and hearing Hesperus is Hesperus, and simultaneous to that is the wondering around if this phrase that I am innerly speaking and hearing would have the same cognitive value to the omniscient being as the other phrase. Correct.
Yeah.
But that whole wondering process is simultaneous to what I'm innerly speaking and hearing.
Yes, it is simultaneous. Yeah, it is simultaneous. Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little worried about calling it inner speaking and hearing as if those two things were jointly, when I think we've established that they're really quite different from each other. One is just the second Hesperus and the other is Hesperus is Hesperus. So to say they're the same thing seems quite misleading to me.
Okay.
Also, the hearing part, the Hesperus is Hesperus. Was that? Oh, wait. Okay. So is there a hearing portion to this, or am I speaking and I'm hearing myself speak? I'm a little bit confused as to whether there's a hearing and a speaking, or if this is speaking.
So I think maybe I have a question. I have to ask a question or answer that, which is,
Sure.
I can imagine, or at least it seems plausible that, you could be speaking and then like maybe you're deaf and then you don't hear anything. So you could still speak and have no auditory experience of it. And so that I'm just saying that that's not what it was. It wasn't like I was speaking with no auditory experience. So I was both speaking and there was the auditory experience, which was the hearing. But if we just want to call that inner speaking, then I'm satisfied with that.
And that's the way I understood what you said before. And I think I actually screwed it up. And actually, I think Cody screwed it up, and then I amplified his screwing it up and whatever by calling it hearing in the first place.
Okay.
Because I think it was mostly speaking.
Okay. No
Okay.
worries.
So clear.
Yeah.
So that's where we're calling inner speaking that involves both the production of speech as well as the hearing, the speaking of it, right? Versus and hearing it, which would be, it's like I'm just passively sitting along
Right.
here and there's just noise hitting me and I'm just listening to this totally. Right? Is that the
Okay.
distinction we're making here?
Correct.
And this
Okay.
is an inner, and with that distinction, this is an inner speaking.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I got
And
it.
it's an inner speaking of a different thing than what he's seeing. He's
Yes.
seeing Hesperus, and he is speaking. Hesperus is Hesperus,
Yes.
and those are not the same thing.
Yes.
You in agreement with that, Cody?
Yeah, I got that.
Then we're going to go back to yesterday's beeps and start with
okay.
number one.
Okay.
And Cody, this is Cody's word.
Okay.
Oh,
So beep. Oh, go ahead.
Really, we are at time. I just wanted to make sure that we are good
I am.
to do another.
I am good until 5:30.
Well, let's do at least one more.
So yeah.
Okay. So at this moment, I was watching, just for context, this wasn't in my experience, but for context, I was watching a YouTube video and some guy was showing like an antique grenade launcher or something like that. And so what was in my experience at the time, I was reading the year 1730. And I was experiencing that number as a year. Additionally, there was the concept, just in my mind, the concept of a grenade launcher. And there was what I found, the way I described it at the time, and maybe I'll rephrase this, but the way I described it at the time was the residual feeling of the image of a fancy ornate gun with a very big barrel. And then also there's the feeling of tiredness.
And I'm not sure I heard it. Would you say that sentence, the residual feeling of what again?
The residual feeling of looking at the image of a fancy gun that is ornate with a big barrel.
And is there anything that is more prominent in my experience at the moment?
Okay. The most prominent thing was the date, the year.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let's start there. So this is I'm reading this.
Mhm.
And is there anything to say about how that's present?
For some reason, specifically, the number 30 is more present to me than the rest of the date. And for some reason, there was some satisfaction with it being like a really round number, like 30. And there was part of that satisfaction was also because it was 7 and 3, which makes 10. So and but I don't know if I know I was reading the characters, but I don't know if there was an inner speaking. There might have been, but I'm having trouble remembering that. Maybe that means there wasn't, but
So the previous beat, you were, well, again, with some caveats here, you were reading Hesperus as Hesperus, right? Then I'm saying that with the asterisk because what you were seeing was something different. But I took you to be saying in the previous beat, that was an experience of reading Hesperus as Hesperus, and I'm innerly speaking that.
I had read Hesperus is Hesperus. Yeah.
Here, it's something similar where I'm reading 1730 as a year, but it's not. But the inner speaking part of it, and that's where this beep is different, where I'm not sure whether it was innerly spoken.
Yes, I don't know if it was innerly spoken.
And so again, just thinking of the reading portion here, is this to say, is this a seeing sort of a deal? I'm taking in the things on the screen, I'm reading this date, or something else?
There is a seeing part of it, where I was looking at 1730 1730. So there is a visual aspect of like these numbers and them being orange. They were orange. I wasn't thinking of them as orange, but that was in my visual experience.
So there's a part of me that's taking this in visually, and I take you to be saying I'm reading with comprehension, right? I know, again, like you said, I'm reading a date here,
Mhm.
not just reading numbers.
Yes.
But as part of that, I take it there's some additional aspects to this that's directly present. And a question mark, the number 30 and the satisfaction, something like that.
Yes. I mean, there wasn't a question mark at the moment of the experience, but the number 30, it was satisfying to me. And I don't know if the reason it was satisfying was present to me. But it also wasn't a mystery why it was satisfying. Like in the same way that it's a fact of the universe why it was satisfying, but it wasn't in my experience why it was satisfying.
So is it the case that I'm at the moment of the beep feeling satisfied?
Yeah.
And that's sort of it? Or is it that or is it that is it something more? I'm satisfied and there's something about the 7 and the 3 making a whole number, or the 30 being a whole number, something like that.
At the moment of the beep, I am satisfied by 17. At the moment of the beep, I'm satisfied by the number I'm looking at, but it's not the reason as to why, like the whole number and everything. That wasn't in my experience. I probably, yeah. I'm glad I'm clarifying that.
Okay.
What I would say about that, Cody, is that when you say are you feeling satisfied? That makes it seem pretty organismic because the whole Gabriel is feeling satisfied. When I think he's saying there is some satisfaction about this aspect, which might be a small part of his affective field. Or
Yes. On the whole, I was probably feeling dissatisfied, but that was just one particular thing.
And while I'm asking, so is the 1730 in text, or is it like the serial number of the gun, or
It's text on the screen, like a title, kind of.
and one word on its own, 1730, or
Yes, one word on its own at the.
this grenade launcher was built in 1730 in the city of Williamsburg or whatever. And
As I recall, it was one word on the screen at the bottom, and that is how I experienced it, as one word on the screen.
okay. And as a fact of the universe, it might very well have been that way. As far as I can remember, that's the way it was, but I'm not going to stake the range on it.
Right.
And the lettering was orange, did you say? 1730 was in orange?
Yes. I'm not completely confident about that, but I remember it being in my experience that it was orange, but I might be wrong about that.
So what I've got is that I've seen 1730. The 30 is satisfying to me in its round numberishness, but I don't explicitly say, well, that's round number. Isn't that interesting? It's just, it's satisfying to me, and I can tell you why it's satisfying. It's a round number.
Mm-hmm.
And is it also the case that there's a satisfaction from the adjacentness of the 7 and the 3 adding to 10, there's something satisfying about that as well?
There is, but that satisfyingness is lumped in together with the previous satisfyingness. So there are two things that make up one satisfyingness.
So there's some numerological, you guess we could say, satisfaction of this number.
Yes.
And that satisfaction comes from 30 is round and 7 and 3 adds to 10.
Yes.
And that satisfaction is present to me. Is there anything more about how that's present?
There is nothing more as to how that's present that I can describe.
I got twisted up here, and so now I'm a little confused. So is it the case, Gabriel, that the deal about the 30 being a round number and the 7 and the 3 adding to 10, is that present at the moment of the beep?
No, not that analysis, if you want to call it that. Just the satisfaction of it.
I'm satisfied at the number I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I've heard it's slightly more than that. I'm satisfied at the number I'm looking at coming from the 30, and which is sort of advanced from the others, visually advanced, I gathered. Not sure about that yet.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's true. The 30 was, I don't know, it was more prominent to me, and it did feel like the satisfaction was somehow a result of the 30. Although I don't know if I would say it was the 30 that was satisfying. I think the whole number, but it felt like it was somehow the 30 that was like the I don't know, the linchpin of the whole thing, the cornerstone of the satisfaction.
So I'm good about that portion.
Anyone else have questions about it? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if the 30 being more present, I understand that that's in your experience, but is the satisfaction being of the 30 or whatever, I think that's too strong, but the satisfaction being related to this 30ness of it, is that in your experience, or is that just like as an explanation to us, like similar how you had explained that, well, I'm satisfied of this round numberness, but that's not really my experience. That's kind of like where it came from. Does that make sense?
Yeah. To some extent, to some extent, there was a sense that the 30 had something specifically to do with the satisfaction.
Okay, and at the moment of the beat.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Then I'm good.
And then there is the concept of a grenade launcher.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So
yes.
Could you say more about that?
I it's like I'm just thinking about I guess it's just the fact that it's not visual, and it's not spoken, it's not words. It's just like somehow I'm thinking about grenade launchers. I wouldn't say not a specific grenade launcher, not a single grenade launcher, but just the idea of grenade launchers.
And are there words involved in this?
No, not that one.
So this is sort of and I guess and there's a question here, cognizing, like again, like like I'm thinking about, I'm sort of analytically considering or musing on the idea of grenade launchers?
Yes. Uh, on yes. It's like I'm not actively thinking about it. Like there isn't. I'm not processing it or anything, but it's just there. Grenade grenade launcher is just there as like like a concept.
But I'm not seeing it, I'm not hearing it, I'm not saying this, I'm not.
Yes. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
And the image of the fancy gun, that's not part of the concept.
It is not.
Okay. So anyone have any more questions about grenade launcher?
I'm good.
Yeah. And then so there's the fancy ornate gun part of this.
Mhm.
So could you say more about that?
So I mentioned how I had some trouble when it was at the night, and this was one of the things I had trouble with because I didn't know how to put it better than that. It was like I mean I've seen fancy British guns before, like guns that like British people would use in hunting or whatever, when they go out for sport, and they're like really, some of them are really ornate, and so there's just this sort of feeling of a fancy British gun that I have, which is a result of like those things I've seen, and that was just that feeling was just there to me, and it wasn't the concept necessarily of the gun, of a fancy British gun, but it was sort of the feeling of a fancy British gun. And it was, and also it was like there was a feeling that it was stuck up, like a stuck up fancy British gun.
And so feeling is a problematic term because feeling can
Okay.
mean a lot of things, right? It can mean like I'm tactily feeling this,
Mhm.
or I'm affectively moved by this, or I have a sense of this thing, or whatever, right? So what do
I
you
would
mean by
say it's like affective. It's not tactile or sensory.
or seen?
Not, no, not visual either.
And so could you say more about then if this is sort of an affective thing, just how is that present?
Uh, um, uh, I guess, I mean, part of it is like the stuck up sensation. The feeling of it being stuck up, is sort of like a, like that it's, I don't know, like, annoyance maybe. There's like some sensation of annoyance. Um,
And by stuck up, do you mean in the sense of pretentious?
yes,
Okay.
like the gun is somehow pretentious itself. And not that it's like made by a pretentious person or somebody pretentious owns it. It's like this gun is is pretentious, as it has like the personality trait, basically.
Mhm. And do I understand that there's no visualization involved at all? I
There's
have
no
in mind,
visualization.
I have in mind a British fancy ornate gun with a big barrel, but I don't see any of that stuff. It's,
Yes.
What's the residual, correct?
Yeah, it's, well, exactly. So it's I don't even, it's like the feeling. So I was imagining it visually, or I was looking at it visually. At this point, it was no longer visual. It was just like the feelings that remained. And I recognized those feelings as the feelings of that gun, but it wasn't that gun.
So is that to say what at the moment of the beep, I feel in an affective sort of a way, like that stuck upness, pretentiousness, the source of which was the gun that I had innerly seen half a second or a second ago or whatever? Or is the gun part of that pretentiousness? Like somehow I'm affectively feeling what I first said was just purely kind of affective, right? There's a source of that affective feeling, but that's all sort of context. All I'm feeling is just the emotion.
Yes, I
Second
think it
involves
is.
sort of the
I
gun.
think that's right. I think it was like as a fact of the universe, these feelings were caused by the gun, but the gun was not in my experience.
And then was the gun something that was actually on the YouTube video?
Yes,
So
and it
this
was
is
the grenade launcher, but I wasn't. But I wasn't. It wasn't a grenade launcher as I experienced. It was just a gun.
so does the is the gun that's on the YouTube screen a fancy ornate thing with a big barrel?
Hmm.
And it is said to be a grenade launcher.
Yes.
And for the purposes of this feeling, I'm thinking of it as a stuck up or pretentious British gun, not a grenade launcher. Is
Hmm.
that right?
Yes.
And my feeling is not of stuck upness. My feeling is of, I forget what you said, pissed offness or
Frustrate or
frust-
annoyance.
annoyance,
Annoyance. Yeah.
annoyance, annoyance at the pretentiousness, at the
Yes.
stuck upness of this gun.
Hmm.
Okay.
Anyone have more questions on that, or Gabriel, anything more to say about that? No? Okay. And then there was the feeling of tiredness.
Yes. And that was definitely physical. That was like a sensation in my eyes of uh them feeling like maybe a little bit dry, and my eyelids kind of wanting to close.
And so is that to say this is just my eye things? It's a feeling of tiredness in my eyes.
I would say I experienced it as tiredness. Um, but it happens to be the case that the way that that feeling manifested was through the eyes, and probably like some feeling in my stomach, but I don't quite recall.
And so is this sort of two simultaneous eye things? I feel dryness of like my eyeballs and my eyelids wanting to close, or is that sort of too specific?
Um, so I guess my question is, since I didn't experience it as, I wasn't like consciously experiencing it as my eyes. That's just what made up the feeling. Um, I don't know. I, I wouldn't say that it makes sense whether I experience it as two separate sensations of my eyes or not. So
Fair enough.
because we're
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's very. So I'm is that I'm sort of where I'm orgamizically tired. My being is tired, and that happens to include this eye stuff, but it's tiredness.
Yes.
So I'd like to go back a little bit to the gun feeling. So I want to make sure that I understood that what was displayed was a grenade launcher, but my feeling was about the pretentiousness of a non-grenade launching gun. Is that right?
Yes. Well, I wouldn't. It wasn't necessarily non-grenade launching, but it
Right.
was just. It wasn't a grenade launcher specifically. It was just a
Right.
gun.
That's what I intended.
Okay.
So somehow I had gone from what is being displayed on the screen as a grenade launcher to in my imagination, just a British pretentious gun.
Hmm.
And that had aroused some sort of a feeling of arrogance or whatever in me. And and that's still lingering, even though the gun is sort of gone.
Yes.
Then I think I'm good.
Yep, I'm good as well.
And I think we ought to say that's enough for today. And I think you're doing great, Gabriel. And I think I still think this is totally interesting.
Okay. Thank you.